Marshall Chriswell is on the line with us once more. It is time for another installment of Martial Law. And this segment today, of course, as always, is intended to be for informational purposes only. The information does not constitute legal advice. The law is constantly changing, and the information may not be complete or correct depending on the date and your particular legal problem. Each legal problem depends on its individual facts, and different jurisdictions have different laws and regulations. Because of that, you should not act or rely on any information in this segment without seeking the advice of a competent attorney licensed to practice law in your jurisdiction for your particular problem. And normally right now I'd say, and there's one of those sitting right across the console from me at the microphone, but that's not exactly true. He's calling from the kitchen today. Marshall, good morning.
Good morning. It's nice to be with you.
Well, it's good to have you with us here today as we think about things around the world and the situation in which we find ourselves. So this is our second installment of Martial Law done from your home, and many people are homebound because of this situation. But, it's a whole new world in which we're living right now, and coronavirus has created upheaval, let's call it, all throughout our lives. One of the interesting aspects and side effects of it is there might be a chance for people to really take advantage of the situation in which they find themselves and save themselves a bunch of money. I'm talking about refinancing, and we've seen some TV commercials about it, and we've seen others who have been talking about it on Clark Howard's program, for instance. Let's get your take on refinancing with lower interest rates now.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Todd. It is the rates right now are historically low. I mean, I have clients that are refinancing home mortgages from the 5 and 6% rates down to 3%, as low as 2.6%. When you look at that and those numbers, they doesn't sound all that different, but if you look at the amount of interest you're paying over the life of the loan, it makes a huge difference. Most of the clients that I've dealt with thus far have actually, if they could afford to keep their same monthly mortgage payment, they're going from a 30-year mortgage to a 15-year mortgage with basically the same payment.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's the big thing about it. I was thinking as you were talking there that it's the term that really is really going to be impacted here, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. You can drop it. You can cut the term basically in half. Keep your payments the same. And there's really no reason not to do it at this point. And we're doing a lot of them here. And it's something that, even though we have the coronavirus issues where, I can't meet in person with clients at this point, we're having issues as far as getting the state government to authorize remote notary services and things. So there are some transactions we're having trouble dealing with. But the refinances, you can actually, banks are open and banks can notarize. So if they have clients doing refinance transactions, we can hold the closings there. So these transactions have been pretty seamless.
Yeah, there are some workarounds that have to be done in this environment, especially with the state regulations. But
right.
It's something to overcome and can be overcome rather easily.
Right, and the refinance is no problem. And if anybody's thinking about it, I would encourage you to contact a local bank. It's going to be easier than going to a large national bank where you don't maybe know somebody or have a branch in your area. Call a local loan officer at a local bank and get that process started, because you don't know how long these low interest rates are going to last.
Now, for folks who have just a short time left on their payments, as opposed to somebody who has just signed, maybe a young couple, and they've got a long-term mortgage, I would think that it would be obvious that for those with the longer terms, it would be advantageous more. But any advantage is an advantage, isn't it?
It is. And you do have to look at what the costs of the refinance are going to be. Of course, there are fees associated with it, as far as fees to the bank, and then the legal work what we have to do is ensure to the bank that you're, certify that you're getting good title, so title search or a bring down search, and then preparing closing documents and things. So there are some costs associated with it. So you do have to look at that and think, okay, is there, given the amount of time left that I have to pay on my mortgage, or how long I might be living at the house, if you're considering selling in the very near future, maybe you don't want to shell out for, closing fees for a refinance. But see, you've got to look at that cost-benefit analysis. But the vast majority of situations right now, it makes sense to do it.
All right, there you go. So we're talking a little bit of real estate here this morning. I want to go to a different direction, and this is particularly, you get family units or groups of friends who might buy a property to share with it, hunting camps, those sorts of things, or some other kind of a property, a vacation home maybe that they want to share. And down through the years, with just an informal agreement, maybe, everything isn't legally clear as to who owns the title, what are the plans for succession, all of those things. Let's visit that topic a little bit from the attorney's standpoint.
Yeah, that's a really interesting topic, and I think it will hit home for a lot of people in this area. When you think about camp properties, you mentioned hunting camps. There are so many families in this area that do have those camps, whether it's up in the Cooks Forest area or the Warren, PA area, or wherever it may be. And what I see so often is someone comes in and they say, okay, I'm inheriting a portion of a hunting camp from my dad, and he passed away, and we're going to have to deal with those issues and get this ownership interest transferred. And then you start looking at the deed, and you say, okay, well, back in the 50s, these 5 brothers bought this hunting camp, and they decided just to put all their names on the deed to the property, without any. A lot of times, it's without any right of survivorship, meaning that when one of the owners passes away, their ownership interest goes down the line to their legal heirs or pursuant to their estate plan, and then nobody does anything about it, and nobody thinks about it again. And here we are, 50 years later, 60 years later, all the original owners have died. In many cases, estates weren't opened, inheritance tax wasn't paid, the property has liens on it from that. And also, you've got this ownership group that used to be five close brothers that is now 45 cousins.
Yeah.
And some of them care about the property. Some of them don't care about the property as far as they don't spend any time there. They're not going to shell out for maintenance or taxes or anything else. And you've got a huge mess. And you've got to clean it up.
Yeah. And I would guess that the longer that term is, and the longer that passage of time, the messier it gets. Yeah.
I think I've said to you before, legal problems are not like fine wine. They do not get better with age.
They don't age well.
They don't. The more the more things change. People pass away. People are dispersed throughout the country and not really having much in the way of a family relationship anymore. All of those things are going to start to cause problems, and so you've got to go back and start cleaning up, kind of one by one. Okay, here, brother John passed away in 1974. Was there an estate open? Was there the inheritance tax paid on the property when he passed? Who were his legal heirs? Do we have to go and start looking at doing some genealogical research and figuring out who all these owners are and things even. They can be cleaned up, and sometimes it's simple. Sometimes it's as easy as it's a smaller family. It's easy to get everybody together and get everybody to kind of sign off and do what they need to do. Sometimes it's more difficult.
Yeah, I would guess it gets pretty tangled up when you get into subsequent generations because maybe the original heirs have passed away, and so the next generation comes along, and what are their claims on it? So what's the first step? How do you start untangling all of this?
So you've got to, like I said, take a look at who the original owners are. Are they still alive? If so, let's get with them. And if not, you start looking down the line to heirs. try to get everybody on the same page, and if not, then there are court actions that you can take to clean up titles to property. Quiet title action is one that you can use. But once you start to get everything wrangled together, and you can clean up the title, make sure that you don't have liens on the properties, you start to identify the owners. Then the best thing to do with a camp property like that is to put it into a family trust, or even an LLC, or put a management agreement in place. And there are these different solutions can apply depending on the circumstances. But the bottom line is to put few people in charge of the management, specifically delineate who that is, what the succession is going to be, who's going to make the decisions, who's going to pay for maintenance and taxes and improvements, those kinds of things. Spell it all out very clearly.
I would guess that all along somebody has to have been paying taxes on it. Would that person have more of a claim than someone who's not even known about it?
They may have a claim if somebody else has willfully ignored it. They may have a claim against that other person to pay back taxes, to get reimbursed, and that can give you a little bit of leverage as far as getting the problem resolved and bringing people to the table.
Would it be as simple as somebody simply renouncing their claim?
It certainly could be. Yeah. If someone decides, hey, I'm just gonna, I'll take the time, just sign off on it. Yep.
Right, wow. Got to get the attorneys involved in that one as quickly as you can. There are probably families out there saying, I never thought of that, but I'd better start doing something now. I don't want to get my kids, saddle them with this.
Well, that's the thing, and the whole point of our five brothers who owned this property on the deed as what we call tenants in common. Their goal was to pass this down to their children, and to have families, a place that their families for generations can create memories, and because of some poor planning, it's making it more difficult for that to happen.
Hey, a couple of minutes left with Marshall Chriswell. I did want to ask you this because you mentioned it a couple of moments ago, and that was a record search over at the courthouse. Typically, that would have been much easier than it is in today's environment. Are you finding that there are more steps to take, or that everything is available to you online? How do you handle all of that?
It depends on the county. Most of my work's here in Indiana County, and the good news in Indiana County is that they've been very proactive. The Register and Recorder's Office, the Prothonotari's Office, the Tax Office have been very proactive about getting things online in recent years. So we can perform record searches online. And if we need something, there is still a skeleton crew working at the courthouse, so we can call over. They can email us things that we might not be able to access online. So in Indiana County and other counties that have been proactive in that way, it's been pretty easy.
That's good news. All right. For somebody who wants to avail themselves of your services, even though it's a little bit different now than it has been in the past, what do they need to do?
You can give me a call at 724-465-5826. We're still working regular business hours, whether even though it's remotely. You can go online and find me at www.westernpalawyer.com.